inside the pocket of your ripped jeans, holding me closer to
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Amnesty International, the Integrations Coordinator in Tórshavn Kommuna, and the Immigration Office, I welcome you all very warmly to this political panel discussion. As we know, the elections are looming large, and as immigrants who have integrated into Faroese society, we have a vested interest in what governments have to offer. And before I give the floor to Rayan Berg from Glasser, who will give us an introduction to Faroese politics, I would like to welcome the people watching us online. And before I forget, I have to thank Klaksvika Kommuna, Ester Kommuna, and Vuvar Kommuna for supporting and helping us out with the streaming. And we thank them for their generosity. So without much ado, I'm going to ask Rayan to come up. And may I request that we be courteous, polite, and mutually respectful, so that we are gathered here for the purpose of learning more about what our politicians have to offer us, in this case, our political candidates. Yes, Rayan?
Brilliant, thank you. Super. Everyone can hear me? Yep, brilliant. So I've got 15 minutes to run through the entire history of the Faroese political system as such. So it'll be quite the speed run through this one. The Faroese political systems, it's a parliamentary system, which means that we don't elect our prime minister or it's just simple. Sorry, too tired. We don't elect our president. We just vote, go for our representatives. Then the representatives, following the election, they meet and agree on, okay, which one of us can cooperate? How will our coalition look following the election? Then, once they've decided, okay, we can cooperate, we can enter into this government, then they decide between them who will then be the prime minister in the Faroe Islands. The parliament, of course, is called Løgtingið. They have 33 representatives in the parliament, and generally they tend to divide between 7 parties, 4 big ones and 3 smaller ones, which we'll come to in a moment. So, if you go to the parties themselves, then we have Fólkaflokkurin, which is one of the 4 big political parties. They tend to be generally rather conservative, combined with some liberal economics. So when we look at ethical questions, gay marriage, for instance, abortion, stuff like that, then they're quite conservative, don't really like to say yes to those issues. While if you look at taxes, we look at how should we, how big of a role should the government play in people's lives and such, then they tend to be a bit more lower taxes. We don't really want to tell people or the industry exactly what they have to do and such. We have also Sambandsflokkurin, which is another one of the big parties. They're generally more socially liberal, with some of them perhaps being a bit more conservative as well, but generally socially liberal. They tend to focus quite a lot on healthcare and a lot on taking care of older people, stuff like that. And they're also ardent unionists. They really do not want the Faroe Islands to leave the Kingdom of Denmark. Javnaðarflokkurin is our main social democratic party. They are classic social democrats, really. They like a big healthcare system, free education, well, pretty much all of the Faroese parties would like that, but they tend to emphasize those a lot. Want to help people who are poorer, stuff like that. And especially perhaps people who are a bit more wealthy are welcome to pay more taxes, as well as the more successful industries in the Faroe Islands. Sjálvstýra, it's nowadays at least, it's one of the smaller parties in the Faroe Islands. They used to be quite big if you go way back in time. They're the second oldest political party in the Faroe Islands. It can depend a bit on exactly which person represents Sjálvstýra, where they belong politically. Generally, they tend to be social liberal-ish, but also often have some conservative streaks as well. But it depends a lot from election to election, really. Tjóðveldi is the last of the big parties. They are, nowadays at least, they are probably mainly social democratic. If you go a bit back in time, they were probably a bit more socially liberal. And it depends a bit on exactly which of the representatives we look to, whether they're social democratic or more socially liberal. The main issue for Tjóðveldi is independence from Denmark. They want the Faroe Islands to leave the Kingdom of Denmark, self-rule, stuff like that. But at least in the past years, they've been rather close to social democratism on the issues. Framsókn is also one of the smaller parties. It's a rather new party. They are clearly the most liberal party in the Faroe Islands. They're liberal on ethical issues. They're liberal regarding the economic issues. Of course, we are in the Faroe Islands, so they're not that far to the right. They still want free healthcare, free education, stuff like that. But they would really like to lower the taxes, make sure that the public doesn't have a deficit, stuff like that. Fewer regulations are also a big thing for them. And they'd like independence as well. And finally, we have Miðflokkurin, which is a very conservative party. It's quite, at least they tend at least to say that they want to have a more social democratic economic policy, but typically they end up in governments with the more conservative right-wing parties in the Faroe Islands. So normally the focus is just on making sure that the Faroe Islands remains a Christian country. So that's it, very quickly, in regards to the parties. And just for the last few minutes, the main issues in the Faroese politics, we have the classical left versus right. The left-wing parties wish for the rich folks to pay a bit more and create a better welfare system and such, while the right wing would like lower taxes and all of the classical stuff there. A big issue in the Faroe Islands the last few years has been progressives versus conservatives, where especially the more left-wing parties, as well as Framsókn, would like the Faroe Islands to be less of a conservative Christian country and be more like the rest of Scandinavia in regards to ethics and such. That's been a big issue the last few years. Urban versus rural is also a big one. The folks in Tórshavn and, for instance, a place like Klaksvík or some of the other, especially northern villages probably, tend to disagree on quite a few issues. Often it's on the more conservative religious stuff, but it's also fisheries and taxes and stuff like that. And then there is independence versus unionism. Some folks would really like the Faroe Islands to leave the Danish kingdom, while others would like the Faroe Islands to remain part of the Danish kingdom. And the last few years, we've seen a bit of an emergence on green politics as well, with perhaps especially some of the younger representatives wishing the Faroe Islands to have more of a green political focus. But very quickly, very shortly, that's it. So, thank you.
Thank you for a brief description of the political parties and their leanings towards in policy. Thank you, Rain. Appreciate that. We now request the candidates to please take their seats. Thank you. A very warm welcome to you all. And we begin by giving you 2 minutes each to express your party's policy when it comes to immigration and integration. And I request you to kindly keep to those 2 minutes. And, beg your pardon?
Where can we share the live stream? Is it on Facebook or?
It's on Facebook, isn't it, Fuya?
Where is it?
YouTube.
I'm just asking because maybe some of them want to share.
It's already been shared, they tell me. People, yeah. 2 minutes each candidate, followed by questions from me and then questions from the audience. And may I remind us all again that we do it in a courteous and respectful manner. Thank you. So we think we'll start from this end. Please go ahead, your 2 minutes.
Thank you. Is this on? Yes. Can I ask, sorry, for specification? It's the election program or just integration?
At this point, it's just integration and immigration.
Okay.
The open questions come towards the end of the session, and I'll keep you posted on those.
Right. Sorry. So my name is Hannah. Good evening, everyone. I had prepared a different, sorry, I'll just say that honestly because we got some other questions in advance where it says about the election program. But if we just look at integration, we have 1 point. I've put some of these on the tables. This is our election program, as well as an overview of the candidates. The single point that we've emphasised in our election program is about foreigners who come with qualifications that they cannot use. So we would like to make it, well, to facilitate it, because in many cases there is no system or framework or anything in place at all. So we would like to implement that so that people can use their qualifications when they come. I think that's as specific as I'll get for now, since it's the only point. Maybe we can win some time there, and we'll get to the specifics later.
Thank you. The next candidate, thank you.
Hi, Solveig Nolsø. I represent Framsókn. Actually, one of our main points with regards to integration is the same as Miðflokkurinn. We want to make it possible for people who come to the Faroe Islands with qualifications that they can't use in the Faroes, to make it so they can use them. That's one of our main issues with regards to integration. And the other one is revolves around language. We need a better coordinated effort with regards to teaching Faroese to people who move to the Faroes, and that's both from our side and from the municipalities as well. That we need a better coordination between the two to offer Faroese studies to people who move to the Faroes. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person, please.
Thank you very much. Jens Ivan Ujernon for the National Party, Tjóðveldi. Well, excuse me for being a bit copying, but sort of the same to start with, but the main focus is equal possibilities, equal or inclusion in society as the Faroese people, and we have a big big challenge regarding foreigners and language, as Selvit says, and we need to imply systems that readily make new Faroese people able to work and sustain their families while also taking their education, because at Tjóðveldi we always work hard to implement education and learning into both our own native people and our new citizens. Thank you.
Thank you. If we could move on.
I am a representative of the Sjálvstýrisflokkurinn, D, and this is one of the oldest Faroese parties, and this party has always been open to the world around us, and we have been very glad for the new people coming to the Faroe Islands. We want to build up our country so it will be a good country for all the inhabitants living here. And we have always tried to integrate the newcomers. And we have been so lucky to have had a good economic development the last years. So we have been able to receive a lot of foreigners in this country. Many of them have been married here in the island and have got children, and the children have been speaking Faroese in kindergarten and schools and have been fully integrated in the country. And we also try to get other people to know about our language. And for instance, can I show you a book? This book is Faroese, a language course for beginners. And this book was written by an Englishman who came here in order to get a course in Faroese. And he got so interested that he wrote this book. And I am the publisher of it. And it has been sold all over the world. And a lot of people have learned Faroese from this book. And as I told you, we have been very glad to receive the foreigners and have hope that they can get more, it will be more easy for them to come to the country. But there, one of the problems is that immigration goes through Denmark, and the Danish government is not eager to get people, to allow people to come to the Faroe Islands. And many people are have difficulty to get their good education at home accepted here from the Danish government. But that we'll say a little bit more on later. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Yeah. Good evening, everybody. My name is Christiana, and I represent the Social Democratic Party, the C. And our we consider it a very important issue that the Act on Integration needs to be passed right away after the elections. It almost passed through Parliament, but they didn't. The coalition didn't succeed. So we need to make this happen, and it is in order for the different areas to offer streamlining processes so that everybody working with the integration, they know what they need to do, and so that all newcomers get the same welcoming, because otherwise it will be very dependent on where you live in the country, which municipality and which area. So we need the Integration Act to be passed as one of the first things. We need to improve the language courses, the access to the language courses. We understand how difficult it is to follow these courses without any funding. So what we will work on is to introduce a grant for people who follow these courses, the same as our own students receive. That's one thing, because without knowing Faroese, the integration process will be rather problematic, and we know how difficult it is to learn the language. So we really need to improve the access to the language courses which are offered around the country. Another thing is the skills. We know that the newcomers or people who move here, they might be already very, very skilled and have very good qualifications. And it's very important, very crucial to find a way to translate your skills into the skills of the educational system in the Faroe Islands, so that we can find out what we need to do, if we need to do anything, so that we can introduce you to the jobs that to which you're qualified on the labor market. That's another thing which is important.
Thank you, Christiana. I'll give you an opportunity later on for the open
Thank you
questions.
very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Next person, please.
Yes, good evening. My name is Michael Koba. I'm from Sambandsflokkurin, the Union Party. This is my first time I'm a candidate. I think integration, or Sambandsflokkurin, just to explain a little bit first, foreign affairs is a Danish issue for the whole kingdom. And in Faroe Islands, we want, or the Sambandsflokkurin would like to take some of these, the administration of these things to Faroe Islands in order to make it more smooth to process work permits and work permits in Faroe Islands. As Christiana told you just before, what I wanted to say also, was a bill on the way now, just before the election, in order to make these whole processes more smooth in Faroe Islands, because there has been some problems with these processes. What we we can continue more later, but that's Sambandsflokkurin agrees with Javnaðarflokkurin on that issue. So that's Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Hello, I'm Simon. I'm from Fólkaflokkurin. It's good to be here. Good to see you all, and also online. We in Fólkaflokkurin, we say that, or I think we all agree on, to be a Faroese is to speak the Faroese language, or it's very important. If you're going to be really integrated in the Faroe Islands, it's important to somehow learn the Faroese language, and we will do everything we can do to make it possible for everybody that comes to the Faroe Islands to learn the Faroese language. And today, actually, there was the first class in the Minam Kampsteller, which is, what is it, high school? Is that high school? Yeah. for second language students, which is a very good thing, and we are very happy about that. And also all the Faroese languages that different companies have, and also communities around the islands. So that's a good thing. We in Folkeflokkeren, we have been through a transition, you can say at least, the last 4 years, and we really see today the value in people coming from other countries to the Faroe Islands to help us out, because we really need you in the both in the workforce, but also as a whole, as a country. Your culture is much valued also, so we really appreciate that. We know that there's a problem with housing. We feel that too. The Faroese people feel that too, and especially single moms with children really feel the lack of housing, and we know that it's a problem, and really want to work with that the coming years. Solveig, he mentions the qualification, which I think is, I don't understand why a doctor can't have his practice doctor or nurse here in the Faroe Islands. We need to do something about that, and the act of immigration, we are totally in for that too. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for your introductory speeches. The next few minutes will still be on integration. I have a question to ask, and those of you in the panel who feel you have something to say, please do oblige. Let's keep it short and sweet. And then on the immigration and integration issue, the guests today will have a chance to ask questions, yeah? And then we move on to the more general issues in the second half, okay? Righto. So my question is still general, though it revolves around this issue. I'm interested in asking a very general question so that everybody has a fair chance. What do your parties see as good integration? What would you define as good integration? Solveig and Hannah, and then Christiana, and then Mikkel.
Thank you. Good integration. Well, the aim must always be to equip people who move to the Faroes, equip them to be able to participate in society. I come back to language. We start with that, and that's the main issue from where I see it. We need to offer good courses everywhere in the Faroe Islands. To people who move to the Faroe Islands, they have to have access to language courses right away, and within that, be informed about Faroese society, history, and all that as well. And from there on, it's also very important to mention that we talk about politics now because it's an election, but the community where they live, the sports clubs, and whatever there may be, churches and everyone else, also have to be a part of this process in order to make it a successful integration. And from what I understand, and as far as I know, there are many people around the Faroe Islands who really take part in this, in integrating people who move to the Faroe Islands, and that's as important as the political things that we can do, that people in the local communities participate in this process as well. Thank you.
Thank you. The next person, Hanna.
Yeah, thank you. I actually, just to comment on what Christiana says, I think we all agree very. We're all pretty. We all agree pretty well on these issues, and I think it probably will pass very soon, the Immigration Act. But concerning what good integration is, I think it's safe to say we'll probably not answer that question fully tonight. It's a very big question. So as well as a candidate tonight, I'm talking to you also as the wife of an immigrant, by the way. So this is just my take on it and what I've experienced. We've lived in Denmark for 6.5 years, and then here for almost 2. But just 2 points. So like a reasonable level of autonomy in everyday life is what I would say characterizes successful immigration. Having said that, though, you can speak not a single word of Faroese and be able to get around fine, go to the supermarket and get your bills paid and everything, buy a car, whatever. You can probably buy a house without knowing Faroese, just about. But we'll leave the language part till later. But on the more personal side, I think if you have a general well-being, I think that helps you integrate, obviously. And I think that doesn't tie in that much with laws and governmental structures. I think if you have a strong social network, not necessarily a big one, but strong, where you can get understanding and support, that will hopefully result in you not missing home all too much. And that support group, social network, can be either Faroese people or non-Faroese. I'd like to emphasize as well. So I'll just pass the word on now.
Thank you. That would be Mikael, followed by Christiana. Yeah.
Yeah, shortly, I think immigration is like the process of feeling like being home as fast as possible, and to get the foreigners to thrive in the Faroe Islands as fast as possible. That's the most important for us. And what, as politicians, we can talk about these things, and it's very nice. But the frames around all this is to make it equal on every island in Faroe Islands. Because as it is now, it's different. There's difference between where you live and where you thrive fast, where you feel like home fast, and where you maybe don't thrive as good as where the immigration is good. So what was in this bill, which was not passed now before the election, is to make a better standard of these things. But we also have, but there's also things that politics cannot control. It's like in the people. We also have to do the marketing of help in the Faroese society to help immigration pass as smooth, fast as possible. So it's a job for all of us. The politician can make the frames, and that's what we work for. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Christiana.
Yes, thank you. Well, I think it is to facilitate general access to your new home country in all domains of society. For example, I know that people really have a hard time to get their skills and qualification accepted. That's one thing that defines good integration. And all in all, we need to take care of the general integration, meaning good information and a warm welcome or a welcoming attitude for kids, youngsters, and adults. So we need to make sure that newcomers, people who move to the Faroe Islands, know where to turn to, whom to turn to when they need information that are basic for living in the Faroese society.
Thank you. Sumin, your turn.
Yeah, Fólkaflokkurin totally agrees on Javnaðarflokkurin. Every word you said. And yeah, I don't know. I would want to follow up on that actually, because one thing that we are proud of, we think is nice. That is, every time we land on airplane to the Faroe Islands, they say "Welcome home." The stewardess says. I don't know if you noticed that, but they say "Welcome home," and I think that's. I want to, throw it out to you also, because it needs to be. You need to be. A good integration is you need to feel welcomed and at home. So I hope that that will be our success rate, that people who come from other countries to the Faroe Islands feel welcome home. And to follow up again from Christiana, that is also to know about the services that this country has to provide. So, for example, to take the ugly part first, if a girl has experienced maybe some violence, domestic violence or something, she should know where to go and how to be how, and also knowledge about the services that we can provide as country. For example, healthcare, school. For example, the new language course in Minam Kampsteller, which is in high school level, so it's a little higher level. To know about the qualifications that are needed around the islands for the different jobs, opportunities, and so on. So that is, for me, is to feel at home. And I want to close with that we politicians, we can ask and we can make frames, as mentioned, but this is actually, to feel at home is actually a job for all of us, for every single individual in the Faroe Islands. And it's also both ways. So it's the Faroese people individually, but also the people who come from other countries individually joining and feeling at home.
Thank you. From what I gather from the candidates, there is a formal and informal aspect to immigration and integration. And they say that it's up to the governments to provide the framework and have a solid policy. And then they expect Faroese society to chip in and do its bit as a community. So in other words, it's a kind of a two-way street, and presumably immigrants into the nation will do their bit to accept what is being, and then ask for that which is not given. Before I give it to the audience, I have a question. There is a kunjer that came out, or an executive directive that came out in October 2020, which said that children of immigrants and immigrant children can be taught in their own mother tongue or heritage language, because it's very important for their identity to get that knowledge, which will then enable them to also learn Faroese as simultaneous bilingualism. So is there anyone in the panel who has a comment about this kunjer that says that the children can be taught in their own mother tongue or first language? Suiman first, followed by Christiana. Thank you.
Yeah. I have not been, I work in the government, so that's I've not been a part of making that kunjer, but I definitely see the need of feeling at home and somehow learning their mother tongue. I think it's a natural thing. When I was living in Copenhagen, we had Faroese. We were taught Faroese in the Danish, not in the Faroese house in Copenhagen, and we were happy about that as family. We had I can continue. We have a little bit of challenges, yeah, with the new people from Ukraine, for example, and which want to have their online course for their children, which I totally understand, but that means that they can't join the Faroese class in the morning. And that seems to be a bit of a challenge for the teachers, and also for the kids that are not coming to school in the morning. So somehow, again, it's both ways. So yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Christiana, followed by Hannah.
Thank you. Well, the access to your mother tongue is defining to all education, all progress. I think that it's important to facilitate the possibility of learning your mother tongue, because that's so very, very defining, and it's such a base on which you stand for all the other learning, all the other education. So it's a very important kunjer. Important rules that we need to respect and do what we can to enhance or to make possible. And then again, it is also important that children are received in a skilled manner in kindergarten and in school. So we also need to have skilled teachers who are able to receive these kids, the newcomers. And here we have a publishing agency called Noam, who has worked for many years with material for children with Faroese as first foreign language, or Faroese as foreign language. It's a very new area in the Faroe Islands, Faroese as a foreign language, but we are making progress. And recently they published a very good book or material for the teachers to teach these kids. So in general, we need access to our mother tongue, and we need access to Faroese as a foreign language in all ages.
Thank you. Hannah had a comment.
Thank you. I'll make it very short. As a linguist, I can certainly confirm that's definitely supported by research to learn your mother tongue. And as Suman says, that is the opportunity in Denmark for Faroese children. However, with all the nationalities that we have here, I mean, and just being realistic, certainly would be wonderful and definitely a great idea. And since it's been published as an executive directive, apparently has to I don't know the exact implications of it, if it actually has to be done or if it's an offer, but I certainly think it's unrealistic. But it would be, of course, preferable to support it and make it, sort of facilitate it as much as possible. And as just a comment on that note, I taught Faroese to the Faroese kids in Denmark when we lived there. And it was really difficult, for example, when I went on maternity leave, to find somebody else. And the pay was not very good. So just in terms of budgeting and stuff, I think maybe that could be one avenue to go. That simply to make it happen, we might have to rely a bit on voluntary efforts.
Thank you. Solveig, you seem to want to say something?
Yes. To be honest, that one is going to be a difficult one to fully implement, to teach, because we have so many languages in the Faroe Islands now. People come from around the world with many different languages, so it's going to be a challenge. But it has to be the aim. Definitely has to be the aim. And I would follow up on Hannah's point that we have to use the people that we have that have moved to the Faroe Islands who speak a language. If there are children, other people who come to the Faroes who speak the same language, we have to use all the resources we have. So, and that again falls on us. We have to equip the people that are here to be able to help their fellow country people who come to the Faroe Islands as well. If not, then we have to possibly use online courses or things like that. But it is a difficult one. But we have to be ambitious when it comes to this. Definitely, we have to be ambitious, because, as I think everyone agrees, to be able to speak your mother tongue is so vital to our own identity, really, that it has to be. We have to, in as far as we can, make it a priority. But as I come back to the beginning, it is a difficult one. But we have to. It has to be our aim.
Thank you, Solveig. Followed by Suimen, Mikael, and Zachris afterwards.
Just a quick comment, and this is not a challenge that we have here in the Faroe Islands. It's all, if we take Scandinavia, it's all countries in Scandinavia that have this challenge, and that is that people who come to the Faroe Islands and they want to learn their mother tongue or take part of school at home. That is a challenge that we, as we speak, talk about and work with, because, and this is the point, we have a school system in all the countries, in the northern countries, and both teachers, the government, politicians, and actually countries as whole want the young people to go to school and to be there when the others are in school. And that's a challenge that we somehow need to work with, because we see, for example, Finland has a big challenge with families coming to Finland, and the kids are not joining the public school. And so they are really working hard with that, I know, in Finland. So that's also here.
Thank you, Mikkel, and then Zacharias.
Just very shortly, Sambandsflokkurin has also recognized that this is a problem with the education of the mother tongue. So this will be listed very high in the future, in general, in politics, in all parties. But we have these, I don't know if it's correct to talk about that now, but we have these many categories of immigrants. Also, we have this fast track people who are just here for some months for work, some for a year or something, and then we have the families that come to Faroe Islands and stay permanent, and that's where we talk about the mother tongue thing, and also the refugees, the third category, which also where the mother tongue. Ukraine and there can be other countries in the future also. We have to know how to deal with that and make a standard for that. But I don't know how to fix it. I don't have a final answer, but we have to figure that out politically.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And Zacharias? Yes, please.
Kan jeg holde på å si noe?
Sjølvande.
Ja.
Yeah, please.
I must thank Kalpana for this meeting here. That has been a very inspiring environment, and we have to take some practical steps in order to make something out of this occasion, because there are a lot of things we can do. I mentioned that we have done this book about Faroese, but on this occasion, when we are in contact with a lot of people around the islands, we can also come with an idea for more integration. And a friend of mine has told us that we are about 120 or about 111 different nations represented in the Faroe Islands. And his proposal was that we could make an edition of our Lord, Faroe, in Faroese and all the other languages which are used in the Faroe Islands. And now we have so many people together here and looking at around the country. We could think about to get the cooperation between all the different nations living here in the Faroe Islands in making this book. Our Lord in 111 languages. Then we have something to be together with. And another practical step is that here in the Faroe Islands we have this national dance, ring dance, Faroese dancer, where people are dancing together. They are in a ring of dancers, and they are singing with no instruments, and they learn each other to know each other, and they are very glad to be together. In that way, if we are trying to get foreigners into the ring to dancer. Then they will become friends, and a lot of positive things will happen. And that will be a practical step in order to get more cooperation between the foreigners and the Faroese.
Thank you. Thank you. Jens Ivan, you asked for.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, seeing that I'm first time running for election and not being, fully aware of all the details in the bill that did not pass, I do, of course, acknowledge we have to be reasonable regarding education on their own native language as a parallel to the Faroese. But being so new, is it okay to ask like a sort of a broad question to some of the panel members, which are more used to this than I am? Zacharias mentions learning our Lord's Prayer. I might see a big problem in a lot of nationalities having a lot of different ways to believe in a deity.
Yeah.
Is this also a problem in all this inclusion? I mean, Tjóðveldi does, of course, welcome all religions, but is this something we're experiencing, challenging already, that people might not be founded in a Christian, religion belief from birth? That's just a question for me.
I'll allow Christiana to respond to that, and then I'm going to throw it open to the audience so they can participate. So Christiana, you'd be the last one before the audience steps in. Thank you.
No, we have freedom of belief in the Faroe Islands, so, and no, that is not a problem in my opinion. That we have many different religions, it only enriches the Faroese society, which is rather isolated, has been rather isolated. So, no, I don't think it's a problem.
Thank you.
Could I elaborate?
30 seconds, yes.
Yes. Thank you, Christiana. But I mean, do we experience any problems of the many religions being in the Faroe Islands?
Yeah, you're asking your political candidates, but as a person who's been in the society for so many years, I've yet to have heard of anything in that. So I'm happy to say that has not been an issue. Open to the audience for questions. For this session, please keep it within the themes of integration and immigration. The second half, you have the option of exploring other avenues of interest to you outside this. So please feel free to ask our panel, and may I again remind ourselves that we do it courteously and with mutual respect. Thank you. Please go ahead.
I want to ask those of you who get into the government to look into why do we not know how many foreign children are in the schools in the Faroes. There are no official figures, and I think that is has a reason. Because according to the leader of the teachers' trade union, he has the union has calculated on the figures, and they think it's around 200, but the authorities have no idea. And now I'm going to turn to the Kunjer. It says that everyone is to get to be assessed, and they will get teaching according to their needs. In practice, in real life, that does not happen. And they get funded. The schools get funded for groups of children, and then the headmasters and the teachers need to delegate that out to all these children. They get half an hour to 1 hour once or twice a week, and that is not enough. They will lag behind. They will not, some of them don't pass even the compulsory schooling. Others can't move on to Minam because they are not good enough in languages and not at all in Danish. So there's a lot in that kunje which looks good. It looks good on paper, but it is not in reality at all. And I can say that in the past, we used to assess children individually, but once the Faroes with globalization and fast track and all the people coming, and welcome to all of you, they decided we are not going to put as much money into it anymore. Now we need it the most, we are not going to do it. And that's why children don't get the teaching that they deserve and have the right to get. And another thing in the same kunje is that it says that you should know Faroese and Faroese culture within 3 years. There's no research at all to suggest that you can learn a language in 3 years. Attending school, catching up on all the other subjects that you are to learn simultaneously, it does not work. So what is the aim of this kunje? Is it just to get them to pass at the very lowest level, or are they really enabled to reach same levels as those who speak Faroese as a mother tongue? So you have a lot of work to do.
Thank you. More like a comment. Are you expecting any response, informed response from the panel? Are you expecting any informed response? That was a comment. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Suimen and Christiana, let's keep it short and sweet.
Sorry, I was waiting for your mic.
You're not getting it.
Oh well. I'm actually in a group of an expert panel working on a paper on how to work with young kids in school that are maybe not or having challenges, and definitely this group belongs to that category. And we have been last meeting we had, we talked a lot about the second teacher that have 2 teachers in every class, and how much that will cost, and so on. So that could be one solution. I will still repeat that I said that, but it's very important that children from other countries attend school, and that's also from the Teachers Union recommendation.
Thank you, Christiana.
Shortly, but very interesting to hear about that. The number of kids of newcomers in the school, that's very crucial to get these numbers in order to know how to make the teaching sufficient. And another thing is the Danish. I'm sure all of you or many of you have experienced the real life struggle with Faroese, and then all of a sudden you find out that, oh, I really need to be fluent in Danish as well if I need to access the Faroese educational system. That is an issue we need to address. Thank you.
Thank you. Jens Ivan? Yeah.
Thank you from the audience for a lot of information and the advantage of not having been in politics. Always can, exclude me from not having done anything wrong yet. But what really sort of shocks me, or there might be a good reason for it, but the first question you asked was, we do not know the figures of pupils. How, it shocks me probably just as much as you. Is there any good reasons for why we do not know that? And another sort of, just one extra thing regarding extra help being foreigner, I can assure you that the Faroese students also lag behind who need that extra education. So we're far from perfect for our own citizens, but we, of course, always want to improve on all aspects. So that's it.
Thank you. Mikkel, followed by Hannah, and then we throw it back into the audience.
Yeah, I really like that question. I think this is also first time in politics for me. But I think that should be used in the future. This problem, first of all, analyze the problem, and then calculate how to fix it. I am sure the biggest problem is budgets. The budgets is the problem. Who will pay for it, and where do we have to take money in order to pay for that? And yeah, and also the staff and everything, and the whole logistics around it. But one of the first things, analyze the problem, and we will work, I will work for that to. I know that there's also been some studies in all these things. There's a PhD been worked out in this whole in this area. I think every politician should read that in all pages.
Yeah, thank you.
Erica
And
Hayfield. Yeah.
Hannah, and then a question from the audience. Yeah.
Yeah, very similar to what Michael just said. You seem to all agree that it was probably financial reasons. I was just wondering that maybe it could be also a question of definition. Like my children, for example, I don't know what they would count as. They're only half Faroese. We moved from Denmark and they have a Danish passport and they've never been to their father's country. And their surnames are Oskarsson and Oskarsdotter. There would be nothing statistically in what sort of would be transferred automatically that would give them away as foreigners. So I don't know if half Faroese children count or not. And also in line with what Michael just said, there is Helena Kanneberg wrote a thesis on, her master's thesis on, I think those were children of Thai and Filipino children. That would certainly be a place to start in terms of first and second language acquisition.
Thank you. Passing it back to you, Maria.
I just want to add that this is not just a question of an immigration issue. This concerns the whole Faroese society. If we don't take responsibility and give these children and adults the necessary teaching, everything will crash. It will affect us as well as a nation. And it's not because of them, it's because we're not lifting them. There are children, 8 people, foreign children in classes. If they don't know the language well enough, then the other children will not get enough attention from the teacher, and the standards will drop. And we are not to blame the foreigners for that in the country.
Thank you, Maria. David has a question. Is it Jeanette? After David.
Hello, my name is David. I'm one of the organizers for this event, and I had the privilege of asking some immigrants if they have questions to ask you. So I'll just read 2 questions. One is very short, and the other one is a little bit long. So one question I received is, will the integration bill be passed on to the next government? So I understand this as, if you come into the government, will you take this integration bill into the parliament and such? And the second question is, how will the proposed integration bill be implemented to ensure fairness? In particular, how will the requirement to pass the Faroese language test treat those with dyslexia, learning difficulties, illiteracy, and inexperience at academia? So this question is more about, I think people had concerns that the integration bill seemed very one-sided. There was more assimilation integration, so that was one of the question in this question. But the other one is, if you have any disabilities or challenges, how can this integration bill be accommodating? Thank you.
Thank you, David. Solvit, followed by Christiana, and followed by Hannah. Yes, Solvit.
Yes, about the integration bill. Yes, we have to pass an integration bill. Yes, but one of the reasons, as far as I can remember, is one of the reasons why it hasn't passed yet is because of, for instance, those examples you mentioned there, and others as well. It's because it hasn't passed yet. Because when it came back, when the government got it back with all the remarks, it turned out that we probably hadn't really, well, there were a lot of things that we hadn't thought about before we sent it out, which is why it hasn't passed yet. For instance, those things you mentioned there, which have to be included. It goes without saying, really. But, and this comes back to what Maria was saying, I think it's crucial, really, that before anything, before the bill itself is passed, we have to make sure that whatever we do or whatever we want to do, that we make sure that the money needed follows as well, because that's the main problem also to the answer to your question is, we pass the bill first, and then we go and look for the money. But it turns out it isn't there. So whatever we do, we have to make sure that the money follows.
Thank you. Christiana, Hanna, and then Sakris.
Yeah, the point about assimilation rather than integration is a very interesting one. I've been discussing this with some newcomers as well, and it's very important that the process goes both way and that we respect each other's origins and personality and culture. So that is an issue we need to focus on. Another thing is the people with special needs. You were talking about. Of course, we need to see to it that they are supported in necessary ways. Thank you.
Thank you, Hanna.
Yeah, in regards to the first question, I would say ASAP. We definitely should pass the Immigration Act as soon as possible. And I think it's very important also not to be afraid to make mistakes, maybe, because there will inevitably be mistakes or just hiccups along the way. And it can look maybe embarrassing. And it's also to read the comments or the remarks on that act. There is really a lot. But I think it's crucial, certainly, to talk to people who are concerned. Who do, as Maria, I remember you from secondary school, you assessed me in German 16 years ago. and I think you also wrote something on with some other secondary school teachers on learning foreign languages. Yeah, people like you who are in the field and who have a great interest, and people who have children who might, struggle in some regards. I think you should definitely involve people like this, because for politicians to make a draft of some sort and then, I think it doesn't make much sense. So I think it's definitely important too. And why wouldn't we, ask those people who have the expertise and the experience?
Thank you. Sakris, followed by Mikkel, followed by Soimen. Then I would very much like to go back to the audience. Could we have it short and sweet, please?
Once more, I would like to thank you for this very inspiring meeting. Some very important questions have been raised, and especially this about the small children and the grown-ups. There we have the big difference that the children and young, they are eminent linguists. They learn languages very quickly and can be very easily integrated. The problem with the grown-up peoples is very difficult, because when we are more than 10 years old, it is nearly impossible for us to learn a new language as a mother tongue. Kalpana is not really an exception. And that means that in order to integrate in this society and every other society is to catch the children. And that can be done in different ways, of course, but the most effective way is naturally that children are coming together in kindergarten. There they learn the language from each other. And the problem with the grown-ups is a thing which where it is necessary to use resources from the public purse in order to get courses which are meaning at getting people learn Faroese. And there we have a lot of possibilities to use a lot of cooperation with other countries where they have the same problem with learning grown-up people a new tongue. And that is a question of funding. And there the problem with funding is that the politicians in this country, they are always speaking about how they can use money, but they are never speaking about how to get money. And therefore we are in lack of resources for solving such a practical problem as getting courses for Faroese for grown-up people.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Please keep it short, Mikael.
Yes, very short. Now we sit this election, and we sit here, and we think that the politicians can fix everything. But I think we also, in society, should ask ourselves, what can we do in order to help immigrants and foreign people to thrive in Faroe Islands? I mean, we could talk about budgets and everything, but if the mindset of the Faroese people is open, and we maybe change it a little bit to help out, and we could do that in many ways with contact families and everything. I had people working in my company at the airport with car rental, and I can see that if you take them home and help out, and I mean, what society doesn't, or what the government doesn't do, you can do it in private. I mean, between people. Yeah. So yeah, you understand what I mean.
Yeah, the community.
Yeah. We could ask ourselves to change our mindset a little bit. Yeah. And we can help out that way also.
Thank you, Suimin, and then it goes straight to Jeanette.
Yeah, the answer is yes for the first question. But I would like to ask you: did you say that you had some comments on the proposal for the ACTA agreement, that it was one-sided, or was that a comment on the? Yeah.
That was a comment from the immigrants that the integration bills appear to be more one-sided, meaning that instead of integrating people, it's more about assimilating the newcomers.
I think that's a serious thing. I mean, then you have to look at it again, and that's definitely then something that we will look at.
Yes, my question was similar to David's. I think he read my mind. My question was why the Integration Act wasn't passed, but then Soviet answered. And I will agree with Anna, because the truth is when you are waiting until you can have all the information you need to start, you will never start. Because like Michael said, we have different categories. Few months ago, we never had the Ukrainians. Now we have them. And talking about Sima saying that some children don't meet in school, I think it's from those from Ukraine. And they are under a very special situation. Coming from a country where I experienced war, I know the reason why, some of the reason why is those children cannot meet up in school. We are not equipped as a nation. We are not equipped to meet their needs. And if we cannot meet those who came on a number of circumstances, whether it's just work or with family reunification, how can you meet the needs of the others? Okay, that was number one. Think about that. You need to start somewhere. But another question I need to ask, so that Kapana will pass on to somebody else later, is you guys are saying, now you are sitting here on the panel and you're saying that we are going to work towards people who are coming here with qualifications so that they will be able to use their qualification and work properly. And all of this, it is very nice to sit and make these promises when knowing that it takes much more. You don't make all the decisions. You have to pass this information up to Denmark, and then Denmark have to approve before you can approve us in the Faroe Islands. So how can you make such promises?
I will let you chew on what Jeanette has said. Jonathan has a question, and then we'll get back to the panel. Here you go, Jonathan.
Hi, I'm Jonathan. I'm from France. And I hear a lot of the party mentioning that they want the Integration Act to pass by, at least 3 of the main party and maybe 2 of the little one. And from what I heard, I haven't been on this group, but I have a group of friends that are foreigners that work on these documents straight when it came out and had a lot of points to talk about. And the main thing that came out is that this document asks a lot to the foreigner, a lot of requirement to the foreigners, but doesn't give any obligation to the Faroe Islands to help them to meet those requirements. And it's called an Integration Act, but at the end it seems that it brings more problem than for the foreigners to integrate, to become citizen, than it solve. So I would like to hear about you why it hasn't been put up, and also to know if you have been aware that there exists a document where a lot of people work on and comment many things on it that is available, and that they send it to the Minister of Industry in January.
Thank you, Jonathan. I'm coming back to the panel. And while I walk up, the thought that crosses my mind is an important one, though I say so myself. Ultimately, Faroese society has to grow and grow as a unit. Instead of practicing othering and saying you and us, it might be time to change the language we speak, because ultimately we're all going to be Faroese. And that's something I think as politicians and candidates standing for election, you have a responsibility, particularly in the public forums, to speak with respect for all peoples. Yeah? Thank you. Now that you've had time to chew, who wants to speak? Christiana, Solvit, Hanna.
I'll make it short. Yes. It is not very. It's a complicated area. It's a relatively new area in the Faroe Islands, but we need to start, because the worst thing is to do nothing. Another thing, you said that we could make promises because the process goes via Denmark, but we need to strengthen the process and to follow the process and to insist on it, and work on necessary changes. So we can promise that we'll do everything we can, and that we'll focus on the skills problems that people have, that their skills aren't respected and recognized. Monsieur, bonsoir. You were talking about the act which requires a lot from the newcomers. I don't know it in detail, but that doesn't sound reasonable. And why it hasn't been passed, it's because there were new elections. I think it was about to be passed when the new elections were announced.
Thank you. Solvit.
Yes, thank you. With regards to the first question, I realize we can't promise that it's going to happen within 1-2 years. But what we have to do, and what I said we have to do, is start the process. I know it goes via Denmark, but I think our Ministry of Culture has to begin the work, start the work, begin the process, because we have a lot of people who come from other countries who are extremely qualified but can't use it. So yes, I know it's a lengthy process, and possibly it's wrong to promise it, but we have to try, because as I said, we are a small country. We're not, and we need all the help we can get. And why, when we have so many people coming from other countries, why can't we use their qualities and use them as a resource? Of course, we have to. With regards to the second question, and one of the reasons why the bill didn't pass was because of, as I said, the remarks that came back were so many and it was vast and complex that really we had to think twice in some cases when the remarks came back about what we were doing and how we were doing it. And you said that the act as it was placed a lot of the responsibility on the immigrants themselves and not so much on the Faroese authorities. But that comes back to what I said in the beginning. We have to make sure that we take all the responsibility that we have on our shoulders. And for instance, with regards to learning the language, I realize that we don't live up to what we said that we want to do. I realize that, and because of good people like yourselves, we were made aware of that the immigration bill wasn't perfect, but it's a good. I think it's a good start, but it needs to be better before it passes. I agree with you on that. So it's not going to be instantly passed, I don't think, but it's a good start. It is. Thank you.
Thank you. Hannah, Suiman, and then Mikkel.
If I can answer it in reverse, I'll take your question first. I certainly get the impression that people are maybe not aware of the infrastructure that needs to be, or the systems that need to be in place already in order for those things to be possible. I think those people who commented and came with remarks probably should have been involved from the start. And it's not that these ideals are too lofty. I think they're fine in a larger perspective. Of course, people should. It's great that people would learn Faroese, but obviously, let there be some courses available in order for people to learn practical things like that. But in order to come with something even higher objectives, that'll take even longer time. To answer the first question, I think we should definitely take over immigration. It's just too much bureaucracy, and we don't have enough autonomy when immigration has to go to Denmark or applications. Anything that we want to change, we should take over, and that's clearly going to take a long time. But if we don't start, we're not going to get anywhere in that respect. And for people to get their degrees recognized, I think we should just personally, this would be my suggestion of where to start. We can always improve, but we have degrees that we can start, well, qualifications that we can study here, and we could start there and get people evaluated. If you'd studied something like primary or preschool education, you could get that evaluated here in the Faroe Islands with people who are qualified to do that. And for those who have, for example, university degrees that you cannot study here, but you have to go to Denmark to do, I think we could start with one person who would be responsible for getting in touch with the Danish authorities, say about doctors or dentists or whatever, to push them through to get some information from the Danish authorities, the health authorities, because that's very skeletal. You're really floating almost in the middle of nowhere, and you rely on what people have had in their experiences from doing the exams before, and it's very disorganized and hardly organized at all. And I think we should have one person who in the name of the Faroese government can contact Danish authorities to facilitate that. And that's a structure that is not in place at all, but it would be a starting point.
Thank you. Yes, Suiman and then Mikkel. Please keep it short. The audience wants to ask.
Yeah. I think the Faroe Islands is a very fragile country. We're only 50,000 people. And we speak our own language and so on. It's hard, and everybody has actually the same goal. That's actually to preserve our country and to preserve our nation. And that's why I think we all want the best of all. I mean, that immigrants feel at home. One thing that I think is actually humiliating is that, for example, a foreign doctor comes to the Faroe Islands and he can work as a doctor somewhere, as a avløsare, how's that?
As a substitute or a local.
But he doesn't get his degree recognized. I mean, for years, tens of years, and that's not okay because it has to be done in Denmark, as you say. So that's a really big big problem for us. And yeah, and you mentioned Ukraine. I didn't want to mention that group, but it's that. Yeah, they are really having challenges. But we see that the kids from Ukraine that attend school from 8 to 3, or they really it takes faster for them to come into the society. So it looks like it's not my. It's the teachers that say that. Yeah, 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 yeah. So that I just wanted to point that out, and I think that was it. What was it? Bonsoir. What was his? Yeah. What was his question?
Jonathan, would you care to?
Why the act didn't pass?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was very demanding towards foreigners, but
yeah,
it didn't put
and
the
I
onus.
just want, I really wanted to say that. That's why I asked, because that's something that we really want to look at, because that's not fair. I mean, so
Okay.
yeah,
Thank you, Simon. Yes, Mikkel. And he's going to be the last one of the panel. Then it comes to you, Jeanette.
Yeah, I'll just do it very shortly. Before this meeting, we had to do some research on this bill, and I read it, and I was actually shocked that it was so light. I mean, I do not believe that things will change very much after that bill has passed. And it's also limited what the Faroese parliament can do, since these are affairs in Denmark. The whole stamp process and everything, your question, the administration process in getting permissions and all that, that's one of the main things that they want to do more efficient. But there are, when I hear the problems that have been raised tonight, I don't think things will change a lot. So I think we should be glad that the bill did not pass, so we can do it better when it's passed, when it will pass, sometimes next year.
Thank you, Mikkel. And while I walk over to Jeanette, I have to say that in the Danish portfolio, the immigration integration portfolio is one of the most expensive in the budget. And when the Faroes proposed to take it over, they wanted it done with 0 extra expenditure. So it's a question of priorities, ladies and gentlemen, a question of priorities.
Yeah, Simon, you talked about wanting people to feel at home, that when foreigners come to the Faroe Islands, they should feel at home in the Faroe Islands. And we know there are a couple of things that have been raised on the panel today about the language, people learning the language. But like you all know, learning the Faroese language is just one part of it. Let's just say that you take over the immigration system, and then you can now decide who can work where. There is the second language, the Danish. Christiana, you mentioned that. And another thing is, Michael, you also said that in order for us to become one, it has to come from both sides. Most of the time when I hear politicians or other people talk about integration or immigrants, it's one-sided. You have come here, you have to learn the language, you have to do this. But you forget to know these people come with their own identity and their culture, and all of these things make them who they are. And trying to strip that out of them, it is not fair. And we have to, I know that there are so many processes. The process is not as easy as me holding this mic and saying what I think. It is a bigger issue to deal with. And we have our own issues in the Faroe Islands. And then when we foreigners come, that we come with our issues as well. And you have to deal with those. But I want to say something, Soviet. I think it is very important. For example, in Tórshavn Kommuna, we have Fuya. She is doing an excellent job trying to get in contact with foreigners and find out what we need and how we can function. It is very important that the politician get in contact with her and find out what is it that you need to know, because sitting and waiting until you get whatever you need when you think you need it, we are never going to start. Again, the key word is start somewhere. You have to make the woman pregnant before you have a baby. Hello? And before she gets pregnant, you need to, call her up and get to know who her name is. Start somewhere, please.
I'm actually not going to let the panel respond to that, Janet. That was very telling. No. What I want to say as an aside before I throw it open to the audience to ask other issues, it doesn't have to be integration and immigration, is the Danish government, what the Faroes does is called policy borrowing. For obvious reasons, we are part of the Kingdom of Denmark, whether we see it as a bitter pill or as a blessing. And the Danish test for immigrants, ethnic Danes are not able to answer it. And that's the concept of fairness. No comments from the panel is going back to...
Language of citizenship.
I beg your pardon?
That's for language of citizenship.
It's citizenship. Yeah. So I think that's ridiculous to suggest that they should know something quicker than kids born and brought up and having stayed in Denmark 15 years and cannot answer the questions.
Members of parliament can't answer it.
Exactly. So up to the audience, it doesn't have to be integration and immigration anymore. I'm going to round off in 15 minutes. So please, does anyone want the mic to make comments on some of the issues or to ask the politicians anything? If you don't, I have a question, so let me know. David wants to say something? Please go ahead, David.
Just before I ask you the question, I just want to say that we've had about 25 to 30 people following us on YouTube, so just for you guys to know. I also received a question about tax exemptions or deductions. So the question is, what measures will be placed to alleviate financial burden on individuals and families, especially when it comes to groceries? Can healthy groceries be exempted from tax? Thank you.
No, yes, it's open to the panel now. Suimen, Christiana.
Can I, because as I told you, I have a
you
ferry
carry on,
to catch.
carry on, yeah.
Yes, the Social Democratic Party will, how do you call it, remove VAT from the groceries of everyday, like fruit, vegetables, bread, and milk also. So now I have to leave because I need to go to Suðuroy. I need to catch the boat. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Christiana. Was it Mikkel who wanted it, or was it Solvit? Mikkel, and then Solvit.
Yeah, I've been in business for many years, and my own company, and I know about the VAT. It sounds very nice to take it, to take the VAT off some goods and services, but in practical ways, the price will stay the same, and it will not be cheaper. So we have to think different on that one. I don't believe that it will change the price. The seller will get more money because the market can pay the price. That's it.
Yes, thank you. It's actually, well, it's a bit on the same point as Michael. And one of the other issues is that, which I don't think has been addressed enough, is that it's going to be extremely expensive if we exempt certain goods from tax from VAT. Some calculations say up to 100 million kroner. So if anything is done, we need to find the money first. Thank you.
Thank you. Suimen and then Jens. Everyone?
I have in my folder, I don't know, I want to take the tax or VAT from milk, and somebody says that they already get it, but I tell them, but that's the economists say that, but I say to them that the milk is too expensive, and that's my point, you know. So we should start there by reducing the price on milk by 25%, and that costs around 18 million kroner a year. We should manage that. That's my my point to that.
Jens Ivan and then Mikkel.
Yes, I'm on. Yeah, yeah. Regarding the in our agenda for this election, we will, since we're a mostly social democratic party. We want the best of industries to, join in helping the whole of society. This has been sort of it's been a sort of a strange sort of panel tonight, because I cannot not agree with anyone. So this comes as a total shock, and most of all, I have been agreeing with the unionists most of the time, because they want to take over the the foreign affairs part of. I need to, just because time is running out, and to get something out to all of you. Yes, we want to work on making it affordable. And on another note, I really somehow need to apologize for, you've all came to Faroe Islands for some reason, and what we've never managed to fix ourselves is to make our own system of government. And what you're experiencing is a culture and a country which is its own, but all the legislations are copy-paste from another culture. So we have not as big problems as you have, but you can see this is difficult to pair these things up. So the sooner we take over all these matters, I mean the
immigration and integration?
Yes, the immigration and integration on our own hands, we can get a system that is on par with our needs, yours and ours, in the Faroe Islands. Thank you.
Thank you. Mikkel, you have a final word?
Now the discussion becomes a little bit more political than immigration, because when he talks about taking off the VAT, and it will cost the state 18 million, who will pay those 18 million? Who should we put extra taxes on every Faroese on the income, or where do you get those money from? You cannot just promise things; you have to also do it in the other end, get money in. So that's just. I just want to finalize that. Yeah. So it's a very complicated thing to do.
Yeah. Thank you. A quick word from Jens Evan, and he finishes us off there.
Yeah, someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that milk, the production, is VAT extra. It's not VAT on it. Yes, that's another problem.
Thank you. Yes, Simon?
I mean, if we can blast tunnels through the whole islands, we can also find 18 millions to make it cheaper, a little bit cheaper. So,
no questions from the audience. Could I round off now? Yeah. I would like to greet the audience online. Thank you for joining us, and to the panelists for willing to participate in what is potentially a time bomb issue. And I thank you, the audience, for your participation and for the atmosphere of mutual respect. Before I let you go, I have the honor as moderator of making provoking remarks and running off the stage. And I allow myself that license because I've been here since 1991. I'm self-taught in Faroese, self-taught in Danish, and Norwegian. And what happens is, often people like what they see as a success story, right? A lot of people see me as a success story. I can assure you the frustrations that all immigrants have always makes us feel that none of us is a success story. None of us is a success story. From the outside, it might look that way, but we are not success stories. I often ask myself, why is it an island nation, a tiny island nation, is not interested in ensuring that all the peoples in the country can contribute to the progress of society? And I'm interested in knowing, why is it there are so many committees in this country, but I never see immigrants asked to be part of working groups, asked to be where it matters? And when I look around at the committees in the Faroes, I can be forgiven for thinking that we don't have much talent. It's always the same people sitting in the same committees, or at least an exchange of people. I have great respect for this country, I have great love for this country, and I dare to call it my home. And I will not let any politician or any policy stop me from doing that. Good evening and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to the audience online. Thank you to all of you. Thank you.